Hey, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you may be. I'm CW. I'm here at Books, Travels, History, and Tales, or BTH and 2. It's just easy. Maybe one day I'll make t-shirts with, BTH and 2. Just a thought. We'll see. I'd like to thank everybody for tuning in and leaving comments, and I never get tired of hearing it. Comments, um, ideas, love to hear 'em. Troy left a note in my mailbox. Name put a stamp on it. We'll work on that. The rest of my viewers will find it lighthearted as well as I do. Um, this one I did, I thought it was going to be funny. It's not. It's sad. So, history sometimes sad, and as usual, involves body fluids, sometimes bone, or as we used to say, hair, teeth, and eyeballs. That's just an accident reference. We don't do that all the time anymore. But let's move on. I was going to do this title, Another First for Women, but I kind of felt different after I completed my research on it. And the research, it'll set you free, or at least supposedly from research. Now, I know I've mentioned Barbara Tuchman before. She was a great history writer. One of her best books was Guns of August. If you've never read it, it's very long. You can take that bits and pieces at a time, but you will see how the Great War came about, and it seems like no one could stop it. But if you do too much research, you get stuck, and you stay in the library or the dungeon in this case, and you keep Googling or going to a volume you got that says go to this other, and you never stop. And pretty soon you don't write a paper or a book or an essay because you're looking at stuff that just goes on. So this is a big thing why I ramble sometimes. Sorry about that. I do that, and and here I go. I digress. But I want to assure you that I found some good sources, and I finally forced myself to stop because this story kind of needs to be told. First of all, Mary King. She was born in Ireland in the 19th century during the Victorian age. T-boy, I'm going to ask you about the Victorian age. She married a man by the name of Henry Ward of Castle Ward, so he's kind of related to nobility. And over there, considering Ireland was kind of a timeshare for British nobles, you kind of get my drift. I believe at this time, when she got married, his brother was a viscount, which is just above a baron and below a duke. And it has all to do with property. And I'm sure someone will comment and say, no, it doesn't. But yeah, if you do, great comment. You can always add to this. So she got married in 1854. Uh, and right off the bat, they started having kids. And this is, you know, I'm glad it's not this way now because, well, I'm the father of three daughters. So, but that was about it in the 19th century for Victorian age for women. Unless you're Queen Victoria, although she had a number of kids too, but she did have a country to run. But this is a time where we don't have cable vision, or God, cable vision. Did I say that? We don't have, streaming or anything else, or any live sports except annual events, like races or something you can wager on. So she had a bunch of kids, three sons, five daughters. Now, I wanted to make sure because it's kind of important. She had one of these kids had a kid named Edward, and this was her grandson, Edward Ward. He became a foreign correspondent. I have not checked up on what he wrote, but they make mention of it, and that get this right, his daughter was Lala Ward. and she was on Doctor Who. You didn't think I was just going on for nothing, did you? It's got to come up with something. Okay, so as a Victorian woman, you're pretty much going to be, mother, run the household. If you got a little money, you're going to have to take care of the servants, keep them in line, blah, blah, blah. That's about the highlight of your day. Education? Don't be silly. Walk around with a book on your head, learn to balance and poise, say, yes, master, and you know who you're talking to, your husband, and that's it. Mary was not quite that way. She had a natural instinct to study things around her bugs, butterflies, onions. She was one of those kind of kids. Her father was either a pastor or a parson. I'm not quite sure. But he saved his money in order to get her a microscope so she would not lose interest in scientific endeavors. Okay, a microscope back in them thar days, not everybody made them. They had to be made singular and probably ran around, 48 pounds back then, which would be equivalent to about $4,000 today. Yeah, good luck. Santa's not bringing that for Christmas. You'll be lucky to get an orange. But Mary was kind of blessed at the same time with her family. Though college and universities would not allow women in, she had connections through a cousin who was a member of the Royal Society of London. So she often went to his home in London, and every chance she got, she spoke to scientists and she told them what she thought. And not many of them said, you should be quiet or shut up. They listened. She had a telescope, she had a microscope. She wrote a number of books, two of them being on the microscope. The first thing, that's how important that gift was. But she was a member of the, let's see, Royal Astronomical Society. Do you know how many women were a member of that society at that time? Three. Mary Ward was one. Queen Victoria was another, and then there was another one, and I can't find her name. If you know, put that in the comment. I'm sure we'll find it somehow. But that's where she got her start in science. Yeah, her dad. Here's a microscope. She collected insects, bugs. Mary, get out of that, place where the manure is. Stop looking for dung beetles. But that's what she was. She had a collection. They were filled up in her room, just boxes of butterflies, dead bugs, stuff like that. She was interested in nature. Um, she mentioned to everybody at a dinner party when she was like 8, "Hey, I just went outside with my little telescope and I found Halley's comet." Isn't that nice? She's such a cute little kid. You should keep her under wraps. She's a girl. Kind of a weird time, but we laugh at it now. People hundreds of years from us are going to laugh at what we did. How did you elect a guy named Biden? I don't know. But I digress. So she went through 11 pregnancies. Besides having 8 kids, she had one stillborn, 2 miscarriages. But she went on. In August 1869, Mary went to her cousin's castle near Dublin. She liked the area because it was full of hills, and life wasn't too busy. It was a nice area. Plus, the castle had one of the largest telescopes in Ireland, if not the world. So that was at her discretion. Plus, they had another thing. Back in the 19th century, people were just free to make anything. And they made an automobile that was steam powered. I've not seen the photographs, but they describe it as a contraption that was handmade and it looked like an oil drum on its side. It had 3 wheels, 3 wheels. Or as Tom Papa might say, that's a bad looking car. And he doesn't mean it in a good, hip way. It had a one wheel in the front that was smaller, two large wheels in the back. I guess you could call them tractor wheels because everything was iron. Yeah, there was no rubber involved. So someone comes out in August. Hey, who would like to go for a ride in this steam jalopy? So a bunch of people piled in. There's a photograph of it because being rich, her cousin also had a camera. And it shows three people on the front bench and they look extremely tight. There's also a back bench, but unfortunately, most people who rode in the back, their legs and feet were like inches from the ground. Yeah, not much regulation in this. So there was a chimney, steam. Oh, this can only get better, right? So Mary and her compadres, they all hopped in. They went for a ride down to the town green, Burr, Birr. She was interested in this conveyance, well, one mostly as a scientist, and they went for a ride. It steamed away, making its way to St. Brennan's Church. And apparently, this is the place, or this was the turnaround point. And the driver started to turn back towards the castle, and he's making his turn. No one knows what happens next. Either they hit a pothole or hit a rock, or maybe they were just going too fast to initiate a turn. But the vehicle moved, jolted, went back and forth, whatever. And the end results, Mary Ward was tossed up in the air like she was a rodeo clown. Within a second, she hit the ground, and following that, one of the large wheels rolled on top of her. You would think that it was luck that the town green had a doctor, and he arrived like within 2 minutes of the accident. And within a minute of that, the doctor realized that the wheel had broken her neck and her jaw. She started to change colors from alive to gray. Her tongue moved around in her mouth like she was trying to get her last breath of air. Blood was coming out of her mouth as well as her ears. There was no doubt that he was certain her skull had been fractured, cracked, broken, and that she was not going to survive. So a 42-year-old scientist became the first automobile fatality in history. But she accomplished so much more, and even for a woman of her time and status, Henry, her husband, he didn't even come into real money. He was in the army. And once he retired, he didn't do anything. He just, he got a little money from rundown rentals. And he didn't get any money until his brother died. And he didn't have any children, so he became the Viscount. That's where the real money was. And we'll go over this because sometimes people say that's not right. She wasn't the first person to die in an automobile or a steam engine. That doesn't count. Well, actually, it does. But another person who would die in an automobile accident in like 35 years later wasn't wasn't an accident for like 1896. Mrs. Bridget Driscoll of Old Town Kissimmee. No, Old Town Croydon. Yeah. She was hit by a Roger Benz, like Mercedes, vehicle, traveling about 4 miles an hour, flying right across. Um, Hit her at the Crystal Palace in London. Also, more than less the way I'm looking at it, crushed her skull. In 1898, Henry Linfield of Brighton, he was the first driver of an automobile to die in a crash. His vehicle was, electric. non-steam, non-gas. And speed was thought to be the demon of this action. People thought Linfield was traveling way too fast, upwards of 17 miles an hour. The vehicle flipped, overturned, landed right on top of him. Later on, he had to have his leg amputated. The next day, he died from shock. Yeah, like I said, I was going to do this with a kind of funny twist, but I just didn't see it. Mary Ward did so much for a woman in her time, and I hear people say, "I can't do that because of I'm a woman. I can't do that because of my age. I can't do this." Well, good. Well, here's a woman who couldn't go to school, couldn't go to university, yet wrote about 4 or 5 books, knew how to use a microscope, knew how to document um, bugs and insects, knew how to use a microscope. Don't tell me what you can't do. It's like being 65 and starting a YouTube channel. I can't do that. I'm too old. Um, I got to do better on my YouTube because now I got no excuse. What is it going to be? I'm 66 and I can't do anything. Well, that's history and it's all in the past. I do want to take time to thank you guys for all of you guys and girls. I know there's at least two for watching and viewing and taking your time out to give me comments. That's great. Then, Charles, I appreciate all of them, and I have no problem responding. Um, we've noticed that sometimes our stuff gets taken down by YouTube, and we don't know why. Because pretty much we try to stay within guidelines that they make up, or sometimes don't even tell you about. But anyway, thanks so much. I'll see you next time.